This is a new sort of jargon which has been come into existence. It was recently mentioned in one of the UN reports on how to make cities climate resilient. So developing soft infrastructure. Among the new terminologies that we have, like regenerative agriculture, net zero, climate neutrality, carbon footprint, and so on. So, I thought that I will talk about this particular subject, especially as it is quite an urgent issue in many parts of the world. So when we talk about climate resilience, it is to do with climate change, and we no longer doubt that climate change is happening or not. There are immediately so many facts and so many things happening all over the world which have given enough evidence that this is ongoing. And the thing is, climate change is not, it's something that we may not be responsible, but we will feel the effect. It's a global phenomenon. So unfortunately, India's carbon emissions is ranking almost, we are on the top 3 in the world. And if you look at just above us, United States, they are actually decreasing their carbon emissions, while we are on the increasing trend along with China. So this is the thing that we have to note, that as we are responsible, we need to also become climate resilient in a way. And if you look at the World Meteorological Organization's annual report on the impacts, among the various impacts, of course, the major one is sea level rise and flooding and storm surges, which are all, of course, mainly felt by the coastal population. And this is, on the rise all along. And these are some of the major effects. Some of the things like ocean acidification is something that we have not even thought of, which is destroying the carbon absorption capacity of oceans. These are all the changes that are happening, and there is definitely a need for us to be prepared and resilient to this new phenomenon that has already begun. The effects of climate change, of course, that the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events is increasing, and this is mainly affecting the developing and low-income countries because, a huge population dwells along the coastlines, and because of the population density and also the type of population, the people who are mostly poor are more vulnerable, are disproportionately exposed to this kind of events. And the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which is targeted almost 2030, which is not very far away, gives us a unique opportunity to look at climate resilience. So that's the focus. And as you can see, this is a figure which shows how the number of people, across the world who are living in coastal areas, particularly in Asia, it's a big challenge because large number of people living in India, particularly we have a 700-kilometer long coastline. So all of these people are vulnerable to the climate change. Of course, in India, we have enough figures and facts which shows what is the type of weather events and how what kind of losses we have gone through and the population that is exposed to it and so on. So these are some of the pictures, and I'm showing these pictures mainly from the urban areas. Like Sangli, last 2-3 years consistently we have seen it. Kerala, we have seen it pre-monsoon. Now it is Assam and Bangladesh also we are seeing major. So you can see that the urban areas are more susceptible to this kind of change in the climate. And of course, the reason, we all probably know it, but it needs to be put down, that one of the major factors, the impermeability that we have created. We have concretized everything. There are huge obstructions to the surface runoff, which used to easily go, there is a natural hydrology which used to take the water to its drainage system and so on, which is obstructed. Then there are local watersheds, small kind of different phenomenon that we create, which is affecting the flow of water. So basically, I'm talking about climate change and the fact that we have to be prepared. And now we know that earlier we only had cyclones and things on the eastern coastline, but now it has last 2-3 years we are seeing consistently there are more and more cyclones on the western part of the Indian coastline. I have been, in various newspapers, I've been pointing out to this aspect of the way we construct and do our buildings and our cities is really important. And I think we need to pay attention attention to especially this aspect of groundwater percolation and hydrology and movement of water, and creating more and more softscapes, as Nilesh was also pointing out in his talk. So the key things I had talked about, I always get this question after it starts raining, why we are getting more and more waterlogged. And among the various factors, of course there are some natural factors, because we are on the coastline and high tide almost affects us and all our drains go into the sea. But excessive concretization, so hard paved surface has a runoff coefficient of 0.9 to 1, whereas a softscape is 0.2 to 0.45. So the amount of water, like if it is a softscape, 50% of the water will be absorbed, and then if you have a hardscape, then it is 100% runoff. So this is what we need to understand. And of course, there are other factors like our own. We had a very beautiful stormwater system designed by the British, which was made for 25 mm per hour with a runoff coefficient of 0.5. But we have exceeded that long back. Plus, the system no longer exists because we have constructed over here and there. On top of it, broken it at several places. And people, it has been mandated for everybody to do rainwater harvesting. It has not actually happened in most of the buildings. So, and of course, the fact in Mumbai we have redevelopment, which means that more and more people are making space for parking, and less exposed earth surface exists for the percolation of water. This is of course the Hisar River. We worked on this river restoration project for several years, and that also is a very important. You can see that this is the river and there is a bend, so all the time this kind of flooding happens, and these kind of river hydrology needs to be taken care of. Providing a riparian belt, that is a buffer zone across on both sides of the river, is a very important aspect. So this picture I think will tell you everything about what actually exists and what we are doing. So from something like this, we change it, we make it into a nala. Nowadays, every river is being made into a nala. And then we have these huge problems of during the time of rains. And it is a completely man-made problem. So when we talk about soft infrastructure, what do I mean? So soft infrastructure includes the addition of trees, vegetation, softscapes. Even on top of roofs, we can do this. And this is capable of not only percolating water, but also because of its nature, absorbing carbon. So it includes a series of infrastructures like parks, gardens, constructed wetlands, mangroves, which will form the buffer to protect us from climate change impacts. So among the various things are green roofs. So, you can have, instead of having a concrete, you can imagine in a city like Mumbai or any other city, how much of space is available which is concretized, which can become a different kind of surface. In green roofs, you can have extensive as well as intensive green roofs, and they have enough. It has research has showed that they can delay the amount of water going into your stormwater systems. They will not completely stop, but they will delay it. So that is one of the reasons that green roof is considered as a climate resilient soft infrastructure. Of course, there are other benefits of green roof like reducing the urban heat island effect, energy consumption, providing heat, thermal insulation, sound insulation, and so many other aspects, adding biodiversity and so on. So it's not just that. Then something like rainwater harvesting, and I'm talking about in buildings is one thing, but also in common areas. Like one of the good examples is Maharashtra Nature Park, where you have something like 37 acres of land, which was actually a landfill, and about 1 lakh liters was their requirement per day. And they have made a huge pond there of 4,000 square meters, 4.5 meters deep. So this has become like a huge collection of water, and it provides water, not just provides water, it acts as a sponge. So rainwater harvesting, of course, we have worked in numerous projects on rainwater harvesting, especially in high density building projects. This becomes a challenge, and yet I think we can do with things like, instead of the stormwater, removing the concretized surface of the stormwater and making them as much percolation into the ground as possible. So a huge number of things can be done, not just the storage part, but also groundwater percolation can be done in places like this. So now I think quite quickly, I just want to talk about sponge cities, which is the new word. Soft infrastructure is one word, but for sponge cities. All of these things that I've talked about has come into a new terminology called sponge cities. In fact, we have a short workshop on this very soon. Our institute is doing that. But the idea of this sponge city is to create more and more ways, natural ways of dealing with the flood water, the rainwater, and creating aspects within the urban landscape wherein there is less and less amount of flooding and other harmful effects of climate change. China has gone a big way into this. There are many examples in China where this kind of urban softscapes have been deliberately created in order to absorb the water, in order to, of course, they have done a lot of damage over the years in their huge efforts towards urbanization. But now they are consciously moving towards sponge cities. There are 20 cities that are listed as demonstration on sponge cities in China. Thank you.